Are you preparing for AWS interviews or starting your journey in cloud computing? This video covers AWS IAM, Identity and Access Management, one of the most important and frequently asked topics in interviews. What is AWS IAM? AWS IAM is a service that helps us securely control access to AWS resources. It answers two key questions: who can access AWS, and what actions they can perform. We can think of IAM as the security gatekeeper of AWS. Why IAM is important? IAM is very important because it prevents unauthorized access and helps us manage permissions in a structured way. It also supports the principle of least privilege, meaning users only get the permissions they actually need. In interviews, a key point to remember is: IAM is the foundation of AWS security. IAM core components. IAM has four main components: users, groups, roles, policies. These components work together to manage authentication and authorization in AWS. IAM users. IAM users represent individual people or applications. Each user can have credentials like password for AWS console access, access keys for programmatic access. A best practice is to avoid using the root user for daily activities. IAM groups. IAM groups are collections of users. Instead of assigning permissions individually, we assign permissions to a group, and all users in that group inherit those permissions. For example, a developers group can have access to EC2 and S3. IAM roles. IAM roles are used to provide temporary access to AWS services or users. Unlike users, roles do not have permanent credentials. They are commonly used by services like EC2 or Lambda. In interviews, remember this key point: roles are more secure and preferred over access keys. IAM policies. IAM policies define permissions using JSON format. They specify effect, allow or deny; action, what operation is allowed; resource, on which resource. Policies are the core of how permissions are managed in AWS. Types of policies. There are two main types of policies: managed policies, created and managed by AWS or users; inline policies, directly attached to a specific user, group, or role. Managed policies are reusable, while inline policies are tightly coupled. Authentication versus authorization. Authentication means verifying identity, who you are. Authorization means defining permissions, what you can do. IAM handles both authentication and authorization in AWS. Principle of least privilege. This principle means giving only the minimum permissions required to perform a task. We should avoid giving full access using asterisk. This reduces security risks and prevents accidental misuse. This is a very common interview topic. IAM security best practices. Some important best practices include: enable multi-factor authentication, avoid using root account regularly, rotate access keys, use IAM roles instead of users, enforce strong password policies. These practices help secure AWS environments. IAM role versus user. The key difference is: IAM users have permanent credentials and are used by people. IAM roles provide temporary access and are used by services. Roles are more secure and recommended in most cases. Real-world example. Let's consider a real-world scenario. If an EC2 instance needs access to S3, we should not store access keys inside the instance. Instead, we attach an IAM role to the EC2 instance. This is more secure and follows best practices. Common interview questions. Some frequently asked IAM interview questions include: what is IAM? Difference between role and user? What is least privilege? What are policies? Why avoid root user? What is MFA? Preparing these will help in interviews. Conclusion. To conclude, IAM is the backbone of AWS security. It helps control access to all AWS services and ensures a secure cloud environment. Understanding IAM is essential for both interviews and real-world projects. Bonus, interview answer. IAM is an AWS service used to securely manage access to resources. It allows us to create users, groups, roles, and policies to define permissions. Following best practices like least privilege and using roles instead of access keys ensures a secure cloud environment. Thanks for watching. If you found this helpful, like, share and subscribe for more AWS and DevOps content.